Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Gatewood, and I am the Communications and Marketing Director at CFRE International. And I'm very pleased that you can be with us today for the How to Become a CFRE webinar. We have Paul and Christine on the back end who will be answering your questions. So you will see in the GoToWebinar control pane that there's a separate question pane. As any questions come to mind, feel free to pop them into that pane and Paul and Christine will get you the information that you need. Some quick FAQs. We are recording today's webinar and you will receive a link within 24 hours to the email address that you used to register. You will also earn yourself 1 point of non-fundraising education in your CFRE education requirements. So if you have a CFRE application started or you want to start one, either way, be sure that you log your point from today. And the cost of the CFRE is $700 US if you are a member of a participating organization. That would be like an Association of Fundraising Professionals, Association for Healthcare Philanthropy, Canadian Association of Gift Planners, etc. We have the full list of 30 on our website. And if you are not a member of a participating organization, the cost is $875 US. All right, so let's jump in with an overview of what the CFRE is. We're the only globally recognized accredited credential for fundraising professionals, and we are cross-border. So if you work in Canada and you earn your CFRE and you have donors in Australia, you work with a sponsor in Japan, wherever, your CFRE is a truly international credential. It's not tied to any one country, continent, anything like that. So it means the same no matter where in the world you work. We've been on the scene since 1981, so we've got a very long history in the space, and everything we do is to be grounded in ethical best practice fundraising. We like to think that everybody all the time is operating above board, but we know that isn't always the case. We know charities find themselves in the headlines for the wrong reasons, and at CFRE, we want to ensure that fundraising practitioners like yourself are adhering to globally accepted ethical best practices, because in turn, that's what's good for you, your charities, your donors, and the causes you serve. So sometimes people say, Ashley, you know, I've looked into doing this. I know I have to study. You told me there's a cost. Should I do this? Am I really going to get anything out of it? And I will say to you, think of this like a stock that you buy that you want to have paid dividends, right? There is some upfront cost or time from you, but it's going to pay out over the course of your career, right? So every other year we do a survey of CFREs and we ask them what benefits they're experiencing from the credential, because we want to make sure that it continues to perform for people. So this data is from late 2021. And 84% of CFREs told us that earning their CFRE had positively impacted their earning potential. We hear all the time from people who say, after I got my CFRE, my next job hunt, I was getting offers that were so much higher. Or I heard from someone in November, she got her CFRE and her employer gave her a $12,000 promotion because he wanted to retain her, because he knew how valuable CFREs are. We've heard about people who've doubled their income in a year. I really don't think that that's normal by any stretch, but we do hear great things about people lifting their salaries. 89% of people say that has provided enhanced professional opportunities. So whether that is getting more recruiters reaching out to you on LinkedIn, more people, you getting more callbacks when you're on your next job search. People tell us that the first job search that they do after they become a CFRE looks and feels quite different to the ones prior. And 92% of people say that it increased their on-the-job confidence. And this makes sense because most fundraising professionals have not gone through a full suite of ensuring that their knowledge adheres to ethical best practice fundraising. You may well be, but most people have not measured their knowledge. And so they go, well, I hope I'm doing this right. This is how so-and-so trained me. Yeah, I think I'm doing this correctly. But until you've measured your knowledge, you don't necessarily know, right? What is the point of becoming a CFRE now, right? There are some really timely reasons why to pursue your CFRE now. I always say you don't want to become a CFRE when you need to be a CFRE, right? You want to already have your CFRE in your back pocket when you need it. The first is for recruiters. We do hear very frequently, oh, I put CFRE on LinkedIn and within a week I had a recruiter reach out, and I never heard from recruiters before. You may see in a lot of job ads it says CFRE preferred. So if you don't have your CFRE, you may not really even make it too far into the process with certain organizations. Also, to be recession ready, if you're worried about maybe downsizing at your organization and your job could be affected where you possibly might not have that role there anymore, if you need to hit the ground running to look for another job, or if you think finally this is my chance to become a consultant, right? You want to have your CFRE already at that point. You also want it in case people on your team are let go and you have to step into their shoes. Maybe you're going to be doing things that you haven't personally had to deal with before, right? Like I said, become a CFRE before you need to be one, because the process does take a bit of time. And we're going to look at the application in the first half of this webinar and the exam in the second half. And so you will see the steps that you can take to go ahead and get your CFRE. You also want the strongest negotiation leverage possible, okay? When you go on your next job hunt or you're looking for a promotion where you currently are, if you already have your CFRE, then that is a huge bargaining chip for you. And we're going to see in the coming slide why that is. But you need to have that to negotiate your salary at the outset, right? Because we all know that all of your power to negotiate your salary is before you sign the employment contract. People think, oh, I'll get in the door and then, at my 6-month review, they'll see how amazing I am. And then I'll have my CFRE by that point, and then I'll be able to talk about a salary lift. It doesn't really work that way. You want to have that before you start at an organization. Don't leave money on the table when negotiating. Don't at all. Your CFRE will really help you with this. And I'm going to show you why. This data is from the Association of Fundraising Professionals last year, and they did a survey. This is their data, this is not our data. And they found that CFREs in the US and Canada earn on average 5 to 16% more than non-CFREs. So it really does pay to go through the CFRE journey. We are very fortunate today that we actually have 2 current CFREs who are going to talk to us a little bit about their CFRE process, why they became a CFRE. We're going to hear from them right now, and then we will bring them back later and we'll hear from them towards the end of the session today. So I'm very pleased to introduce our first CFRE, who is Shelina Gwaduri. She is joining us today from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada, and she became a CFRE in 2019. So Shelina, hello, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Ashley, for having me. Can you hear me as well?
We can hear you just fine, yeah, very good.
Fantastic. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining across North America and for CFRE for hosting this important session and all the work that CFRE does throughout the year. A few reasons why I became a fundraising professional and actually worked towards my designation. One is to expand my fundraising knowledge. There's so much information out there, and if you sometimes stay in your bit of silos, you don't necessarily get to learn about all the best practices or all the latest techniques that are happening in different parts of the world, and predominantly also in North America, where we are based. So that was one of the reasons why. The second is to build donor confidence. I didn't actually think that this would be so important, but now, as Ashley mentioned earlier on, that sometimes charities find themselves in situations in the news that they don't want to be in. Charity donors are actually becoming much more savvy in terms of who they're giving funding to and their hard-earned dollars to, and who's actually speaking to them, representing those charities, and do they actually have the information and the credibility. And having that designation behind your name is very helpful because it shows to them that you are a dedicated professional and you also follow and adhere to the ethics and values of becoming a CFRE. I've had in some cases where donors are familiar with what a CFRE is and others who are not, but what would like to know. And that's always a positive and plus. And finally is to connect with diverse professionals in this field. And when I mean diverse professionals, those who are work for different funding organizations, be it nonprofit, be it academic. In this case, was my co-presenter Andrew, and those who also represent different ethnicities. Sometimes you don't have see many people that have from different backgrounds that represent a wide variety of your donor base. So this is another reason why I wanted to expand, get my designation to expand that knowledge as well. So those are my 3 points of why I became a CFRE. There's many more, but those 3 are a standout to me.
Well, thank you so much, Shelina, for sharing those. We appreciate it, and we will hear from you a little bit later. And now I would like to welcome Andrew Polter, who is joining us from Cincinnati in the USA. And he has also been a CFRE since 2019. And so we're going to hear from him why he became a CFRE.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. It is 1 o'clock in Cincinnati, Ohio, so I'll say good afternoon, but hope everyone's having a great day. Just want to share 3 reasons why I chose to pursue the CFRE. First, I knew when I was approaching the CFRE that I had experience with major gifts, but perhaps didn't know much about volunteer management at that time, or just hadn't had that direct experience in my work. Marketing communication was another area. So I really wanted to expand myself, my body of knowledge, and find out not just what this is about, marketing communication or some of the other domain areas, but find the best practices. So one thing I enjoy about the CFRE is it is truly generalist in nature. It is not just a major gift track, an annual giving track, or just a volunteer manager. You have to have that body of knowledge to become a CFRE. Next is my commitment to the profession. Since I began fundraising in 2012, I've always had a commitment to professional development, a commitment to this industry, and the CFRE is just another way to show your commitment to this industry, that you are going to be an ethical fundraiser, that you believe in the highest standards of the fundraising profession. So this was just a way to commit to the field of philanthropy. And the third point I want to talk about for now is gaining credibility, both internally and externally. So when I'm talking internally, I'm talking amongst my team members, I'm talking amongst colleagues, other professionals in this field. So how do they view an individual who has this credential, who has pursued the highest levels of excellence in the field? And externally, in my work, I'm in the College of Medicine at the University of Cincinnati Foundation. I work with a lot of MDs, I work with JDs, I work with PhDs, you name it. These are all highly credentialed individuals. And so when I'm sitting at the table in meetings, I want to have that same level of professionalism, commitment to my industry, and the sign that, you know, just as they have pursued their JD or their PhD or their MD, that I, in my profession, have also pursued the highest levels of excellence.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, Andrew. And for folks who might have any questions directed for Shelina or Andrew, you are welcome to type those into the question pane as well. We have some question breaks coming up where we can stop and talk to them. So super quick, I'm going to just do this little poll, and then we are going to dive into everything you ever wanted to know about the CFRE application. So if you want to tell us, have you had a chance to start your CFRE application now? All right, and I'm going to close this poll in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right, and let's see. So it looks like about a third of people have, and 2/3 of people have not yet started their application. All right, all good. Well, no matter where you are in the process, you're going to get some good information. So there are 2 steps to become a CFRE, and the first is to complete the online application, and the second is to pass the exam. That's it. There's just 2 steps. The application itself is looking at what you have done professionally in the last 5 years. So we're in May of 2023. We are looking at January 1st, 2018 forward. So when we talk about what's eligible in the application, we're looking at the last 5 years going forward from that January 1, 2018 date. through this year. The application itself won't expire. So if you started one 4 years ago, we still have it, it's still good. If you begin one today and you forget to log into it for a year, we'll still have it. You can log in and out as much as you want. You do not have to finish this all in one setting. And in fact, we encourage you to work on it piece by piece, because that usually is the easiest way to do it. And I'm going to tell you why in just a second. But for the folks that didn't start their application yet, I would encourage you to go to CFRE.org, and you can click either of these two places with the arrows and start. It's completely free to begin. You only pay if you decide to submit your application. So have a look, jump in there, it's all good. The first section of the application is education, and we have 3 main sections of the application. Education is the one that takes people the longest most of the time to complete. You need 80 points, and you're thinking, thanks, Ashley, well, what the heck is a point? So let's look at what a point is. You earn 1 point per hour that you're in a fundraising session, okay? So you go on a 1-hour webinar about corporate sponsor tips and tricks, that's 1 point. You go to a conference that has 5 hours of class time, and you attend all 5 hours of the education, that's 5 points, right? Super easy. 1 point is 1 hour in a session. If you ever present, and I will say presenting is completely optional, so if the idea of presenting makes you, want to fall through a hole in the floor, that's fine. You don't have to do it. But if you do, you will earn yourself 2 points per hour that you present. And the first time you make a new presentation, we will award you 3 points per hour to recognize the time you put into the research and collation. So these are all very straightforward ways to earn points through your fundraising education. Now we have a bunch of other ways that you can earn these points. So one is if you have an academic degree. An academic degree is not required, but if you have one, we will award you points. We will give you 10 points for everything on the one column you see and 5 points for everything in the other column you see on your screen here. We will accept your degree from any year and any major. This is the only item in the entire application that can be past the 5-year mark. So if you have a Master's of French Literature from 2003, is valid. You would get 10 points for that master's, and then you would get 10 points for whatever your bachelor's was in. All right, now you can also earn some points through what we call relevant non-fundraising education. And there's a real stress on that word relevant, because people submit all kinds of crazy things. Swimming classes, chocolate making classes. I mean, these sound great, but we can't really say that they're relevant, right? We're thinking something like a leadership and management course, a financials course, a managing different generations in the workplace course, right? Something that makes a clear ladder up to your success as a fundraising professional, right? We also have the ability for you to earn points through service learning. Service learning is just our term for volunteering. So if you volunteer and you've done it in the last 5 years, you can earn up to 10 points total. You can earn 1 point per year per organization you volunteer with. And it does not have to be an opportunity that runs 12 months out of the year. So if you are, let's say, volunteering at an after-school program in July and August, that's totally legit, and you could count that, right? We know a lot of volunteer opportunities just don't stretch across a full year. If you are on a board or a committee of a nonprofit, this also includes if you're on an AFP committee, if you're on a committee at your place of worship, your children's school, you will earn 2 points per year per organization that you're on the board or committee of. All right, so people often say, well, Ashley, there's all this education out there, what qualifies? So kind of a shortcut is if you look at what's on your screen and it's fundraising related, it's going to be good. I do want to draw your attention to the 4th item here, which is the audio and video recordings of conferences. in my personal life, I'm very frugal and I'm always trying to find the cheapest way to do anything. If that's you, then attending conferences that will give you access to the recordings of the streams that you could not attend on the day is a very smart way to bank up a lot of education points off one conference registration. All right, so for instance, I'm going to use AFP-ICON because it just happened last month. Let's say you went to AFP-ICON and you see on your screen, this is a screenshot of our application, how you're going to fill this out, right? You see you've got the dates, is it fundraising related? You say it's a conference, and where it says name of course, that's where you actually are going to type the name of the conference, because we don't need to know every session you attended at a conference. We just need one entry for the conference as a whole. And you will just tell us in the presenter line, various. You don't need to tell us the name of every speaker you saw, because that would just get insane, especially if you started attending panels, right? It's like way too much. So just make one entry for your in-person conference attendance. And then if that conference offers access to the recordings after, you'll make a separate entry for watching the recordings. And so the start date and the end date will be your viewing dates of that, of all the recordings. And then you're going to just tell us the name of the conference, but put the word virtual or recordings in this name of course box so we can differentiate it between your attendance on the day. And then you'll just put the total number of hours that you earned from watching those recordings. So again, that's a great hack if you want to earn a lot of points off of one registration. Okay, so Paul, we have arrived at our first question break. What questions have come in? Are you there, Paul?
Yes, hi, sorry.
Oh.
I have multiple mute buttons on my headset and in my software, so sorry about that. We do have some great questions coming in. Please keep them coming. Don't be shy. If we aren't unable to get to you today with these questions, feel free to send them to succeed@cfre.org. So here's a great one. For what reasons are applications denied? And if you're denied, are your fees good towards another application?
So yeah, your application could be denied if you don't input your information correctly. So for instance, you know how we said that there was 10 points maximum of non-fundraising education. If you say max that out and then you put 10 points of non-fundraising education in the education section, right? You said that it was fundraising related and it wasn't. We'll catch that and then we'll have to send the application back to you and you'll need to resend it to us once you've satisfied the correct points requirements. You will not be charged to resubmit. So if we do have to send your application back for any reason whatsoever, just know that you don't have to worry at all about being charged a second time.
Yeah, and to further to that, you know, a lot of times when I'm reviewing applications, people will submit it. I'll send it back to them. Your application is valid for 1 year from the date the payment is received. So within that 1 year period, if there's any sort of additional education required or performance required, you have the ability to continue adding to your application. Your payment will still remain valid until you do meet the requirements, and then we can approve it and get you testing. What sort of supporting documentation is required with the application process?
Yeah, that's great. So for education, it can be your registration confirmation email. It can be a receipt if it was something that you paid for. If it was a webinar that you watched on demand, you could take a screenshot of the first and the last slide. That will all be good. And then one of the things I'm going to talk to you about in the next few slides is the funds you've raised. So we can take a signed letter from your supervisor saying, you know, Cassandra raised $275,000 while she was at our organization from, you know, these dates, and that would qualify. And also some of that funds raised stuff may even be in your annual report.
Yeah, generally the practice and performance piece is verifying your dates of employment, and the funds raised is usually pretty easy. It can be done with a quick email from your supervisor to confirm. The education pieces, that's where it can get a little tricky. So just be sure that you're saving all of your registration confirmations, receipts, certificates of completion in a personal email box in case you do end up leaving your organization. You want to continue to have access to those things that are important, just in case you do get selected for an audit.
And another thing too is if you think, oh my gosh, I've been on all of these AFP things or AHP things, or, you know, I watched a webinar from whatever organization, you can go back and ask them, say, hey, can you just resend me my receipt? Can you resend me the confirmation email? Because these organizations, they get these requests all the time from people pursuing their CFRE. So don't be shy about it. And Paul, we probably have time for one more question.
Great. So we're getting a lot of questions about presentations. So I just want to provide a little bit of clarification on that. Presentations that you do, that you conduct, let's say internally, training your staff members on how to run a campaign or how to use the new software, those are not eligible as education. That's considered part of your employment responsibility. So anytime you do staff trainings internally, you're presenting to your staff or board members, and it's part of your employment duties, you can list that as a performance project because it's professional performance, but it would not be considered education credit. What we're looking for in terms of presentations for the education piece are, for example, if AFP invites you to speak at a conference, if you deliver a fundraising presentation at a local chapter meeting, if you're a consultant, if you're doing volunteer trainings to any type of organization, in a volunteer capacity, that's all eligible as presenting in the education side. And all presentations, all of them, have to be fundraising related. We do not allow credit for non-fundraising presentations.
Excellent. Thanks for clarifying that, Paul. All right, well, we will hear from Paul a little bit later in our upcoming question break. So real quick, we're just going to do our final poll of today, and we are going to ask you about how long have you been professionally fundraising? So select where you fall. And I'll close the poll in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right, wow, we've got a lot of people here who have been fundraising for 3 years or up to 3 years, so that's cool to see. And then we've got 2/3 of folks who have more than 3 years experience. All right, so the reason we asked this is because the next section is called professional practice, and professional practice is just you working. That's all it is. And how it works is you need to have worked for 36 months in a paid professional fundraising role in the last 5 years. So again, January 1, 2018 until now. Sorry, I'm going to go. So effectively, you need 36 points and 1 month equals 1 point. Super easy. If you haven't yet worked 36 months in the last 5 years, you are totally in the right spot. And the reason is that you can start your application now and you can work on that education requirement while you're waiting to hit your 3-year mark. And as soon as you hit 3 years, you can submit your application. The sooner you earn your CFRE, the sooner it's going to benefit your career, right? So we talked about the salary lift. If you bump your salary up via the CFRE when you're 42, it's not going to have the same impact as if you do it at 31, right? Because the sooner you do it, the sooner it's going to affect the trajectory, because hopefully you're not going to have to take a step back salary-wise. So there are a lot of people who start their application as soon as they get into fundraising, and then when they hit the 36-month mark, they just hit submit and get on with it. You do need to have been working at least 50% of the time in fundraising if you're a full-time staff person or consultant. So basically, if you do PR 50% of the time and fundraise 50% of the time, you do marketing 50% and fundraising 50%, that's totally fine. But it does need to be that 50%. If you're a consultant, and we have a lot of consultants that are CFREs, you've probably seen that out there. For their 36 months, they must have a client to qualify. So if I say, hey, my name's Ashley and it's May and I'm going to be a fundraising consultant, but I don't get my first client until August, I can't count the months before August, right? I have to actually be working as a fundraising consultant. I can't just be building my website and that kind of thing. So you've got to have a client. If you do pro bono work, totally fine, that will qualify. You just have to have a contract in place. All right, now we are at our third and final application section. This is professional performance, and this is just you raising funds. You need 55 points, of course, in the last 5 years. And each point is worth 250,000 US dollars. And people always ask, well, why is this US dollars? Because I'm in Canada or the Bahamas or somewhere else. And the reason is because we're accredited. The accrediting body, ANAB, only lets us have one currency for this. So if you're fundraising and you're located someplace that doesn't use the US dollar, we have a currency converter inside the application. So you can absolutely still pursue your CFRE. Now, events, you report the gross, and fundraising is a team sport. What I mean by that is, let's say 5 people, you're one of 5 people, and you worked on a DM piece that brought in 375,000 US dollars or the equivalent. There's no way to say, well, the first person brought in 40,000 and the second brought in 70,000, right? You don't know because you all worked on it together. So you're going to take that full amount of the funds and you're going to count them for yourself, right? Because you were on the team, you're actively working on that project. You must be on that project, right? If you don't do planned giving and your coworker who sits next to you closes a $2 million bequest in the next 10 minutes, you can't use that for your CFRE points, right? But at the projects you've worked on, all good. All right, and if you are in a smaller shop or you can't meet this requirement, we do have a way that you can earn points through communications and management projects. More info about those is on our website, so I won't dive into that too much today, but just know that if you're in a smaller organization, you can absolutely earn the points that you need in this professional performance section. The costs we talked about at the top of the hour, but it is $700 US if you are a participating organization member like AFP, AHP, CAGP, NATO, NACTO, and $875 if you're not a member. If you want your employer to contribute to this, have that conversation. 54% of CFREs say their employer contributed to part or all of the cost of earning their CFRE. It's absolutely a conversation worth having because it benefits your organization to have a CFRE on the team, right? So you're doing a good thing, not just for you, but you're going to be bringing that deeper level of knowledge to your own team. So here's a list of some of the participating organizations. The full list is on our website. That application fee includes us reviewing your application, all the testing fees. So when you go to the test center, you're not going to be asked to pay anything else. It includes us sending you a digital badge. When you become a CFRE, you may have seen these on LinkedIn. They're a very popular way that people announce that they've earned their credential. And it also includes the printing and mailing of your certificate. So it's one fee and it includes all of that. And as we said before, if Paul looks at your application and he says, you know, something here is not right, I need to send it back, you are not going to be charged to resubmit, so don't worry about that. All right, so Paul, we are at our second question break. Have we had any questions come in about professional practice or professional performance?
Yeah, mostly just again related to verification. So how would you verify professional performance and professional practice in the instances of an audit?
Yeah, so the professional practice, you could get that from your former HR person or department attesting that you had worked there during a certain period of time. And then the professional performance, that's what we just sort of talked about, right? Where you can get the signed letter from your supervisor. It could be something in your annual report.
Perfect. And how would someone show as a consultant the 36 months of employment?
Yeah, sure. Well, you would, I don't know, Paul, if you have a specific way that you like to see it, but if you're, running your own consultancy, you would have tax documents about, what you've been doing. You don't have to send us any sensitive information. But Paul, tell us, how do you prefer to see that?
Oh, yeah, for consulting, really we can, if you're asked to provide supporting documentation, signed copies of your contract with your client, and of course you can redact any information that's sensitive, but keep in mind, all information submitted to CFRE is confidential. We do not share it with anybody, so it's very strictly kept in confidence. But in the case of an audit for professional practice, to verify clients, sometimes we may ask you to provide a signed copy of the, maybe even just a signature page. It doesn't have to be the whole contract, but that could be one mechanism for that sort of verification. And I think in relation to that, another question is, how does one document consulting in the application?
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have the opportunity to dive into that today, but I'll just say that in the application, there is a section under that professional practice where it says, are you a consultant? And basically you say you're a consultant, and then it'll show you how to add clients and the dates you had those clients to build up to that 36-month period. So
Yeah,
it's pretty straightforward once you jump into the app.
Yes, correct. And to clarify, consulting is a little bit different in the sense that you're awarded 1 point per month that a client is retained. So we understand that consultants don't work in necessarily in 40-hour time blocks. So, if you retain a client during that month, even if you only worked with them 1 day in that month, you can still get a point for that month. Keep in mind, points do not overlap. So if you have 2 clients in 1 month, you can still only earn 1 point for that month. So you want to make sure your consulting spreads across that 36-month period, having at least 1 client during that 36-month period or multiple clients spread out across that period.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Paul. And we will hear from Paul at the end if we have any time for Q&A. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to talk about the exam. The exam, I know, is very anxiety inducing for people. They feel very nervous. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I took an exam. But I want to do everything I can to assure you and to make you feel good and confident about taking an exam. The CFRE exam is about fundraising best practices. It's about something you do 40 hours a day, or not 40 hours a day, maybe it feels like that, 40 hours a week for years, right? This is your chosen profession. This is something that you have experience and expertise in right now, right? So don't psych yourself out about, what if I don't pass the exam? I don't want to do this. I'm scared. What could happen? Put that out of your mind as best you can, because you don't want that to stop you from achieving your goal of becoming a CFRE and all of the benefits that come along with it, right? So to that end, the exam is offered in 4 test windows a year. You can see what these are on your screen. Any month of the year except December, you can take the exam. Today is May 4th. So if you look at your screen here, you'll see May 4th falls into that second test window, right? So when you submit your exam, you have to pick a test window. You don't have to pick a test date yet, but you do need to tell us the window that you want to sit for the exam in. So be sure you pick something that is doable with your work schedule, personal life. If you were to submit your application and have it approved, let's say December 5th, not December 5th, May 5th, let's say May 5th, you would have until May 4th of 2024 to take the exam, right? So you have up to 1 year to take the exam. We give you plenty of time, so you should not feel in a crunch to do this. You have full control over picking the test window that you want. Once we approve your application, we send you an email with instructions to book your exam. And that's when you're going to actually pick your test date. If you need to sit on that email for 2 months while you wait for the dates of a work trip to shake out, we totally get it. You just book that when you're ready to. We do recommend not leaving it too last minute, because sometimes test centers do fill up. We are also very upfront with you about what the exam covers. It is 200 multiple choice questions, and they come from the 6 knowledge domains on your screen. You're going to notice that securing the gift and relationship building, the second and third, make up almost half the exam, right? So this is the bulk of what the exam is looking at. When you're studying, be sure you don't skimp on these areas. Give time and space to really study those areas. Study everything you're not familiar with, but really don't skimp on securing the gift or relationship building. We have on our website a test content outline, right? Because those 6 domains, right, they seem kind of like quite up in the sky. So how do we drill down into what the exam covers under each of those? That is on the test content outline. This is a PDF on our website. You print it off, you grab a highlighter, and you highlight every item that you've not worked in directly or don't feel confident you can answer an exam question on. Okay, and that's how you're going to know what to study. So no two people are going to study the same thing. So we don't want you to spend time studying stuff you've been doing, backwards and forwards for 15 years, right? Once you have identified the areas where you need to study, you will come to the resource reading list on our website, and it will show you which books ladder up to which knowledge domains. So you can't see it here because it got cut off in the screenshot, but under all of these, like KD1 through KD6, there's a list of the books, and each book has KD1 or whatever next to it that it addresses. Now, if you want to just buy one book, far and away, the most popular book people use is Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, 5th edition. This is really a gold standard right now in fundraising, and it is a comprehensive book, and if you want one book, it will cover all 6 knowledge domains. If you're in the US, this book is also part of Amazon's textbook rental program. I always check for Amazon Canada. It doesn't seem to be there yet, but in the US one, you can rent this book for 3 to 4 months for $27 US. So it's half the price of buying it. If you want to do that cheaper, that is a good way to do it. The exam is 200 multiple choice questions, and there are 4 answer options for each question. That is really, really good news for you. The correct answer is staring back at you. There are no open-ended questions. You're not going to find any essay questions. Everything is completely multiple choice with the correct answer looking back at you, and you need to select it. You are selecting the best answer for the best practice. One of the biggest mistakes people make on the exam is that they answer the questions for how they do it at their organization. And if your organization is not following best practice, that is not going to be a good strategy, right? It's not to say anyone's doing anything unethically, intentionally, but if you don't know, and you start answering for how you do it, it could put you in a bad position, right? I just gave this presentation to AFP Houston last month, and somebody there said, that's the great thing about the CFRE is that it will, when you're studying, you're going to figure out what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and then you can correct anything that isn't totally to the standard, right? So the studying process will give you that information. So don't just rock up to the test center and say, I don't need to study. I'm just going to answer this for how we do it in my department. You have 4 hours to take the exam, and the good news for you is that most people finish in 2 hours and 45 minutes. You're going to have plenty of time. You can check your work. You can move backwards and forwards inside the exam. The score range is 200 to 800, and 500 is the passing score. And I bring this up because I think people get so stuck in their own minds about the exam that they think, oh my gosh, if I get one question wrong, it's all over. And it's not like that at all. Even any exam, right, is going to let you have a question, some room for you to not get everything correct. The passing score is a 500. You don't need an 800, right? So keep that in mind. And all the scoring info is on our website. All right, we have one practice question today, and I'm going to read it aloud, and then you can have your answer in your mind, okay? When a donor wishes to make a plan, gift, / bequest to the endowment fund, the fundraising officer should first, 1, offer to contact the donor's financial organization and advisor. 2, explore what the donor wishes to accomplish with the gift. 3, identify and share with the donor the organization's future needs. Or 4, introduce the donor to various plan giving options. All right, so have a think on that. All right, everybody got their answer in mind? And the correct answer is 2. That is the ethical best practice, right? Because you want the donor to come to you with what their goals are. You don't want to start steering them because one program hasn't been as popular as you'd hoped, right? You want the donor to come to you with what their philanthropic intent is. Also on our website for free, we have a study plan template. This is a PDF and walks you through step by step by step how to study. You don't have to use this, but if you feel like you're having a hard time getting started, it's a great tool. We do also offer 2 paid study tools, and I have to emphasize, you don't have to use these. If you don't want to use these, that's totally fine. People pass all the time without them, but if you want the support of them, I want you to know they're there. The first one is the CFRE practice exam. This has a bank of 320 questions, some of which are retired from prior versions of the exam, but no live exam question appears in any of our study materials. And you can take 10-question mini quizzes or 100-question tests. This is a great tool if you've never taken a computer-based exam, if you have really high test anxiety and you want to just get back into the test-taking rhythm, or if when you look at that test content outline and I told you, highlight those things, if you do the highlighting and you're still like, I don't know, do I really know these? The practice exam will show you everything you get right and wrong. We also offer a study guide. This has practice questions, test-taking tips, and space to inventory your fundraising knowledge, and that's $49.9 US. That is available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. That is ideal if you like an old school workbook style of learning, which is how I like to learn. When you want to take the exam, you have 2 options for how to take it. And one is from your home or office with a product called OnView. And the other option is to go to the in-person test center. Unless you have a mobility or health issue, we really encourage you to go to the test center. We get all the data back, and statistically, you have a higher chance of passing if you go to the test center. So people who take this exam, they're more likely to pass it when they go in person. The way to find your closest test center is to go to pearsonview.com/CFRE. You can type in your postal code or zip code and it will populate a map like you see here along with a list of all the closest test centers. Test centers are not just for CFRE. There will be other people there taking other exams, but it is designed to be a distraction-free test center. If you take it there, you can get up and use the restroom at any time that you want. If you take it from home, there's only a 10-minute period in the middle where you are allowed to get up and use the restroom, and that's for exam security. Once you finish your exam, most people hear straight away what their score is, but it can take up to 48 hours. When we get your testing data back from the test center, or if you do OnView, we'll send you an email like, hey, we got your score. And then within 1 week, you're going to get that digital badge. And at the end of the test windows, so we looked at those 4 test windows, it's at the end of each test window that we mail certificates in a batch. We don't, every Tuesday mail out them. So just know that if you sit for the exam early in the window, you will have a little bit of time until your certificate hits the mail. People are often really obsessed with the question, what happens if I don't pass the exam? And don't worry about not passing the exam if you haven't even started the process, right? If you haven't started studying, I don't think you should worry about passing the exam, period, because if you study thoroughly and you cover all your bases, you're gonna be fine. If you are unsuccessful, there is a 30-day wait period until you can sit for it again, and there's a $375 US retake fee. And people go, well, Ashley, $375 US, that is a steep retake fee. We want that to motivate you to study, 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 right? You want to pass and become a CFRE the first time, we want you to pass and become a CFRE the first time, right? put everything you've got into that first exam, and you're never going to have to worry about any of the information on this slide. One reason CFREs do command so much more in the market is because they recertify. If you get a fundraising certificate, that's fantastic, right? But how fast does that become out of date? Think about how out of date our degrees are. I have a master's in advertising from 2005. Like, that thing is old, you know? Certificates and degrees, the world moves on really, really quick. When you have a credential like this that you have to maintain, you have to do ongoing education, employment, and raising of funds, right? So you have to keep doing professional practice, professional performance, and education. We have 2 people right now who earned their CFRE in 1981, the first year it came out. If those people had never done another hour of professional development, we would all be terrified, right? So as a CFRE, you recertify every 3 years. Good news, there's no exam at all for it. Once you pass that exam, as long as you don't lapse, you will never, ever have to think about it again. The rate is $408 US if you are a member of a participating organization, and it is $510 if you are not. Once you become a CFRE and you move to your next job and you're negotiating, you know when this is going to come up, right? So you can say, look, next year I'm going to recertify with my CFRE, and I would like it built into my employment contract that you, new dazzling employer, are going to cover it, right? It's a conversation worth having. A lot of people do this. So if you're in a position and you feel comfortable, have the conversation. You can see on your screen here the requirements to recertify. Just keep in mind those 30 points of professional practice, right? So in that 3-year period, you need to have worked 30 months. If you are out for maternity leave, medical leave, contact us. You're not going to lose your CFRE because you're on maternity or medical leave. If you've heard everything I've had to say and you're like, Ashley, this is fine, but I really want to talk to someone who's gone through the process themselves, not you, I won't be offended. We do have a CFRE ambassador program, and it is no cost. I will connect you directly with a current CFRE via email, and you can set up a call with them, pick their brain. How did they study? Did they talk to their employer about helping cover part or all of the costs? And if you want to be matched with a CFRE ambassador, email share, S-H-A-R-E, at CFRE.org. And I have to spell it out because once somebody thought I meant Cher the singer, who you may be surprised to learn does not work at CFRE. But if you want to be connected to a CFRE ambassador, drop me a line. We've got 38 fabulous ambassadors around the world. They will be more than happy to chat with you. All right, so I promised we'd bring Shelina and Andrew back, and so here we are. We are going to hear their advice, and then we're going to close out with looking at any of the remaining questions that you have in mind. So Shelina, welcome back. Are you here? Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right. So take it away. Oh, are you muted?
I'm muted, yes.
Okay,
so my advice, I guess starting with my first advice that I would put is, and the couple that I would, the top 3. So there's a lot of advice, and when you're planning for this and you're studying, there's gonna be so much coming at you. And there was with me, but these are the 3 that I worked out and I felt that was quite important and helped me. I would put a bit of a caveat being that I was one of the ones that didn't successfully pass the CFRE the first time. Again, as Ashley mentioned, you shouldn't go into the frame that you're not going to pass. You should, but I didn't, but I was very motivated to overcome any challenges and pass it the second time, and which I did. The first tip that I would say is find a study buddy or study group, but keep it small and consistent. Here I'm speaking from Western Canada in Vancouver, British Columbia, and we have universities nearby, University of British Columbia and Simon Fraser University, that actually have their own CFRE study group that I joined. But what I later found out is that there was 1 or 2 people that met the timelines that I was working, met my schedule, and it just worked for me. And I kept it small, and we worked and journeyed through this together. And it's important because not only is it helpful to have that studying time, it keeps one another motivated, but also you can also talk to somebody who also understands kind of the ups and downs with studying and whatnot for this exam. So it's actually quite useful as well. And then you can party with them once it's done and you successfully pass. The second important is practice anxiety reducing techniques. I can't emphasize this enough. Especially for those who find test taking very overwhelming, and that was the case with me. When you do your practice exam, try to simulate as best as possible the actually testing center. And I know that, if you haven't seen it, you won't know, but, hopefully Ashley, maybe one of the ambassadors, can give you a sense of what that looks like. And practice it. Take it without no distractions, nothing's around you. Put your phone away and try to simulate as best as possible so it doesn't become, when you actually do take it, so unknown to you and that it becomes overwhelming. And just as you're taking the test and exam, if it means that you have to kind of pause for a moment and just kind of practice a meditation or a mantra to kind of, keep yourself going and keep yourself calm, even that 1 minute or 30-second pause will help you pay dividends as you continue on that few-hour journey of taking the exam. And that's exactly what I did the second time around. It was very helpful. And can't emphasize this enough, and was mentioned earlier, study the textbook, not necessarily what you do in the real world in terms of fundraising. It will conflict with you at times, and the CFRE textbooks are of best practices. So study, keep studying that textbooks and those examples and flashcards. So those are what I would say is the top 3 from my point of view. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Shelina. Thank you so much. All right, and now, Andrew, come on back. We look forward to hearing your excellent advice.
All right, thank you, Ashley. So one thing that I often say to individuals who are pursuing the CFRE is you have to rewire your brain to think like a CFRE. So you have to understand that the test and the perspective are very unique, and you have to kind of turn off, as Ashley and Shelina have mentioned, you have to turn off your experience and you have to really focus on how the exam approaches questions. So perhaps I've had, experience in major gift work, and maybe something that I do works best for me, and I've been successful over the years, but maybe that wasn't the best practice according to the CFRE. So I talk about it that it's in kind of like a laboratory setting. If this was a perfect ideal scenario, focused on ethics, focused on best practices, that would be the correct answer for CFRE. Second, there are so many resources out there to help you prepare for this exam. So there's the study guide, which by chance, it's actually on a 20% discount, I think, right now on Amazon. Just a little plug for that if you want to get that. There's the online courses, there's study groups. You can even find some online. And then you have the global ambassadors. So I'm one of those ambassadors, and we're here for you. So please, this is what we love to do. We love to connect and kind of be on your journey, partnering with you, getting you to that point where you're successful to CFRE. So consider all the different avenues that you have available to you. And lastly, I always say just plan to take the exam once. Okay, work backwards. So if you know you want to take the exam in that 4th test slot, well, what do I need to do now to get myself ready for that? Kind of reverse engineer the process. Do you need to start studying? Do you need to read some text? Do you need to gain some more education points? Don't get to the point where you're scrambling just to get ready for the exam. You have to just take the time to reverse engineer and help set yourself up for success. So those are 3 things. And again, I always want to put a plug. If you would like to connect with a global ambassador, please connect with Ashley. Go to that share email address, not CHER, but SHARE, and we would love to connect with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. Excellent, excellent advice from both Shelina and Andrew. So I realize we've got 1 minute to go. And if you have a question and we don't get to it, we definitely want to answer it. So I'll put up the email address in one slide here. But next steps, start your application. It doesn't cost anything. You can log your education as you attendant, right? It's always easier to log something as you go along than to sit there and think, oh my gosh, what education have I done over the last 5 years, right? So put this hour in, you've already got 1 point to go. Track everything as it happens. Keep your receipts and your event agendas in a personal email, like Paul said. Don't put them in your work email, because if you're suddenly not at your job, I can guarantee you that you're not going to think, oh, geez, I better get all my CFRE proof out of that email. Make sure it's in your Gmail or someplace you can always access it. Talk to your boss during budget creation. Some of us have budgets that end on June 30th and we move into a new budget year July 1. If that's you, perfect timing. Perfect timing. All right, so thank you so much. We are so grateful to Shelina and Andrew for sharing their time, and to you for sharing your time with us. It was wonderful to see all the questions come in. If anything comes to mind, drop us a line at succeed@cfre.org, and we will be more than happy to get you the information you need. Look out for the email with a link coming to you in the next 24 hours. Take care. Bye.